tossed a bat on stage. Additionally, every night we perform, a bunch of insane individuals show up and throw this garbage on stage. I assumed it was one of these rubber bats. Imagine this. Backstage, in a dark whiskey-stained dressing room, it is past midnight. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, reclines in his chair and gazes off into the distance. His eyes brimming with decades of anarchy, love, and thunderous applause. But he's not talking about madness tonight. He's referring to magic, the type that only specific rock women ever bestowed to him. The first name that came out of his mouth was Stevie Nicks. Her voice was once compared by him like a phantom around your spine. Calm, soothing, and unforgettable. Something changed inside Ozzy as soon as he heard her sing Rhiannon. It went beyond admiration. It was acknowledgement. Ozzy would never forget Stevie's mystique. A shared untamedness encased in velvet and darkness. They shared more than a single historical moment. They had a pain in common, an unseen connection of drugs, darkness, spiritual chaos, and dreams too intense to endure. Stevie was the one who discovered Ozzy backstage in the early 18s when he was on the verge of collapse due to his inner turmoil. Just two shattered icons sharing broken parts of themselves like lifelines, fallen in the same backstage room without any publicity or attention. She didn't say anything to comfort him, she just sat next to him, and no crowd had ever cried as loudly as that quiet did. Stevie was more than simply a voice to him. She was a haunting reminder that beauty might yet emerge from ashes, a mirror with feathers and eyeliner. That ghosts can heal, they don't always torment. He then discussed Anne Wilson, the thunder goddess of Hardazzi, who had a distinct kind of strength that she admired. It wasn't wild or disorderly. It was based in something ancient, stable, and seismic. She had more than simply a strong voice. It was a reckoning. When Anne released a note that seemed to split the sky, Ozzy recalls standing motionless at the side of the stage. Her eyes wide, her heart thumping, on a shared bill during a European tour. It was submission, not merely awe. They never made headlines together or were involved in any scandals, but they had a deeper, unwavering regard for one another. She didn't attract attention with show or flames. She didn't have to. Anne sung as if she were enchantment. She could silence a stadium with a single breath. She could stop Ozzy, the maniac, the symbol, the embodiment of anarchy, with a single line. And that's what really got to him. Her strength without shouting, her calm. For someone who reminded him of the silent realities and built a kingdom on insanity. Those infrequent sacred things that are memorable without being loud. It's similar to the statement, "Hey man, it's Ozzy." It's as if you had to leave right away. Go ahead and say, "I'm Ozzy." Then he says, "I'm." Then he turned to the rebel queen, Debbie Harry. With a slash in her smile, Ozzy referred to her as punk royalty. It was more than simply a nickname either. It was a compliment and a warning all at once. In New York, they met at a wild after party. Ozzy was already 3 drinks in, hovering between charm and mayhem after Blondie had just blown the roof off CBGB. Debbie did not recoil. She narrowed her eyes, lit a cigarette, and told him to stop talking so she could listen to the Ramones. The noise was broken by that moment. Ozzy never forgot it, laughed, and felt a bit in love. She was a defiant queen who didn't require a court. She didn't give a damn about his mayhem, his fame, or his showmanship. She challenged him with a single look and treated him as an equal. He was reminded of what rock was always meant to be by her unadulterated independence and the way she walked as if the rules didn't apply to her. Uncomplicated, dangerous, and completely real. When they reconnected years later, the electricity was still present. Just the mutual recognition of 2 icons who had weathered their own storms, no romance, no drama. To him, Debbie was more than just a singer. She was a force, a warning shot, a memory too lovely to regret but sharp enough to sting. When Joan Jett arrived, Ozzy's whole face brightened. "I adore rock and roll." To him, those 4 words were more than just a line. They served as a blood oath, a battle cry, and a reminder that rebellion wasn't limited to guys. AZ always admired Joan's fiery independence, which she rarely experienced. She was fire, not just something to toy with. Despite their many encounters, one instance stuck in his mind. In 1984, Ozzy was falling apart backstage. Drugs, uncertainty, the encroaching gloom. Joan entered calmly and sharply, like a sword. "Pull yourself together, man," she informed him. Her speech was full of fire, without any drama or sympathy. And in some way, she reminded him of himself in that one sentence. Theatrics weren't necessary for Joan. She didn't need to rip things down or shout. The universe bowed around her as she stood motionless and unflinching. She was the kind of warrior Ozzy would go to war with or against without hesitation. She was cold steel clothed in leather and eyeliner. He revered her, not merely admired her. Rock and roll was not something Joan Jett merely survived. Rather, she dominated it on her own terms, without apology or capitulation. His tone softened when he mentioned Patti Smith. She was once referred to as the priestess of punk by Ozzy. Her presence plagued his quieter moments like a hymn half recalled, yet she wasn't a friend in the conventional sense. Even if her voice wasn't loud in his life, it was always present, resonating from speakers when the world became too heavy and whispering through pages. Word by word, he read the Bible to the children as if it were a confession scrawled in ink and blood. Her pain and anger were not the only things that drew him in. It was her innocence, her insistence on being herself. Patti's unvarnished poetry felt like a lifeline to a man whose whole existence was enmeshed in spectacle and performance. They met at an event in London in 1995. No big greetings, no flashbulbs from paparazzi, just a nod, silent, endless. More was conveyed by that one gesture than by any words. Music, celebrity, and living too loudly for too long have left two souls damaged. Achieving harmony via acknowledgement of one another. She didn't have to speak. She had already addressed him in a manner that no one else had ever used. Last but not least was Lita Ford. She was the only woman who actually experienced the same flames as the others. Their journeys were tumultuous, tainted with both genius and devastation. They collided, not simply worked together. Their voices shifted between pain and beauty in the studio. Their relationship was just as strong offstage, built on suffering, resiliency, and the type of ferocious devotion that only two survivors can comprehend. Close My Eyes. Forever, their duet was more than just a song. It served as a lifeline. There were restless nights, backstage quarrels, shattered bottles, and silent apologies behind every note. However, there were also times of genuine, unadulterated connection, laughing, and healing that neither of them could ever have again with another person. Lita looked down on the mayhem of the rock world as if she owned it, and Ozzy never forgot it. She didn't recoil when others questioned her or waver when the spotlight became unkind. She was unflappable, tall, and dressed in leather. And in all his craziness, Ozzy viewed her as a sister in arms rather than a coworker. She was more than just a character in his tale. One of the few people who contributed to writing the chapters he believed he would never make it through was her. She was the woman he knew the best of all. They screamed, laughed, fought, and collaborated. Lita was more than a list name. She had a role in his narrative. Close My Eyes Forever, their duet, was more than just a song. In that instant, two survivors exchanged glances and remarked, "We're still here." Lita persevered despite the haze of addiction and the blaze of celebrity. And for that, Ozzy adored her. Each lady is unique, with 6 names and 6 storms. Each of them left their mark on the chaos that molded Ozzy's world. They weren't simply rock women in his opinion, with wounds like battle paint and voices that could call up darkness and stifle turmoil. They were rock warrior survivors. These weren't merely homages to Ozzy. They served as a sacrifice to the muses that prevented him from disappearing into his own shadows. Glimpses into a soul molded by memories, blood, the lullabies of a broken past, and the shrill howling of guitar strings. Not every name was merely a favorite. They were steel and eyeliner-wrapped lifelines. These women were not merely survivors of the deadly current of rock. They turned into its most powerful waves, smashing through all barriers and changing the boundaries of what women in music could be. And Ozzy did more than only appreciate them in his last sigh of contemplation. He expressed gratitude to them for preserving aspects of him that the world had never seen, for repeatedly demonstrating to him that beauty may emerge even in the most ominous cacophony. Each of the 6 storms and names is a tribute to defiance. Each one is inscribed in the history of a man who screamed into the abyss throughout his life, only to have voices greater than fate respond.